Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Men number 186, cover dated October 1984. This was a special double-sized issue, 41 pages of story by Chris Claremont and Barry Windsor-Smith. So Claremont and Windsor-Smith co-plotted the story, and the story features prominently Storm and Forge, and tells the story of a blossoming romance between the pair. This cover is pencil and ink by Barry Windsor-Smith, and I would guess that it's coloured by him too. So let's open the issue up. A very striking splash page here of Storm asleep in bed, and just excellent draftsmanship here from Windsor-Smith. I would have to think that there could be some life drawing underpinning this. The fetal position that Storm is in is related to the story. In the previous issue, she was shot with a prototype weapon by Henry Gyrick, who is a prime member of Project Wide Awake, which was instituted with the president's backing at the end of the classic Days of Future Past two-parter, Uncanny X-Men 141. So Storm, by virtue of being shot by that prototype weapon, has completely lost her mutant powers, and so she has been traumatized. So the title of this story is Life Death. Chris Claremont there, the scripter, Barry Windsor-Smith pencils, but the two are share story credit. Terry Austin is inker here, so Windsor-Smith not inking himself. Terry Austin does an amazing job in this issue. The colorists are Glynis Wine and Christy Shield, and the letterer is Tom Orzechowski. And notable too in this era that the editor of the title is Ann Nocenti, who would go on to have her own career as an excellent writer of comics, particularly her collaboration with John Romita Jr. on Daredevil. So if we turn over the page here, I like the opening of this issue, which is quiet. Claremont is restrained in terms of his scripting of these scenes. He lets Windsor-Smith's drawing show, not tell, what is happening. So, as I said, Storm is traumatized from what happened to her in the previous issue. Forge, feeling guilty in relation to the part he's played, being the designer of the weapon, takes her to his home in Dallas, Texas, Eagle Plaza, and is endeavoring to nurse her back to health, but she's pretty despondent, as is evident in these panels. So Forge leaves and ruminates on his mixed emotions regarding Storm and the role he has involuntarily played in her losing her powers. Just a fantastic design here of Forge's apartment building with these holographic decks. Very, very interesting design work by Barry Windsor-Smith. So here Forge recalls, by virtue of a holographic computer program, what happened in the previous issue. And of course this is helpful to any new readers picking up the comic off the newsstands and being unaware of what happened previously. So we get here the replay of what happened, whereby Gyrick's actual target was Rogue, who was wanted for murder. And while shooting at Rogue, Storm pushed Rogue out of the way, caught the full force of the blast, and, as I said, ended up losing her powers. So as Forge is reviewing the events holographically, Storm emerges from her bedroom. And then the scene switches to the X Mansion, where Professor X is using Cerebro to boost his psychic powers, and he's searching for Storm because he, in the previous issue, had a psychic injury when he felt Storm's pain when she was blasted with Gyric's weapon, and has lost all contact with her psychically since then. So Nightcrawler's present as well, and Nightcrawler asks Professor X, Professor, in this panel, was what you felt Ororo's death? I wish, my friend, I could say no. So they're unsure of Storm's status. Then the scene switches back to Dallas, Texas, and Eagle Plaza, and Forge and Ororo discussing the experience for Ororo of not having her powers. There's a storm building, and Ororo says here in this panel, only a few days ago I would not have needed to see the storm to know it was there. I would have felt its power resonating within me. I could have told you precisely when its rain would fall, and how much, for how long. I could have nudged it aside or gentled its fury. I could have made it its thunder and lightning my own. Now I can do nothing but watch. And Forge's opinion and perspective on all of this is, you're alive, and doesn't that count for anything? Because he waded into the water to rescue Ororo, who was unconscious and who could have drowned otherwise. But she is not so sure about the value of her life now, minus her powers. So Forge is once again annoyed by Storm's attitude and goes down to his pool for a swim, and surprisingly Storm joins him, dives into the pool. Again, just amazing storytelling here and artwork by Windsor-Smith. Just the skill and ability of Windsor-Smith is stunning. What he can't draw is nothing. Like, it's difficult to draw water like this with verisimilitude, and he does it splendidly. So at this point, Storm discovers that Forge has lost his leg, and also indeed he has a prosthetic hand as well. And she gets something of the backstory here regarding Forge. Forge was only introduced in Uncanny X-Men 184 some months earlier, so both Storm and the reader is learning more about this character's background. She also asks him in an upcoming panel, but not yet, about his heritage. So as Forge and Storm are getting acquainted, our scene shifts to Caldecott County, Mississippi, with Dr. Valerie Cooper here, who is involved in Project Wide Awake, a government agent. This character here is, what's his name again? Phil. He's a colleague of hers, and they're saying goodnight. They were down in Mississippi in relation to capturing Rogue. But as Phil gets ready to go home to his wife for a late meal, he is met by this alien figure. So this is a Dire Wraith, and the Dire Wraiths were introduced in ROM Space Knight #1. They are part of that toy series, but Marvel Comics, Bill Mantlo in particular, developed a backstory for these characters. So they're an alien race with magical powers, and they've come to Earth naturally enough to take over. So the way they operate is pretty disgusting. They suck out the brains and substance of their victims and then take on their form. So a type of body snatcher, yes. And they're now going to attack Val Cooper. But she is unexpectedly rescued by Rogue's intervention. So Rogue takes on the Dire Wraiths, and Val Cooper takes on her former colleague, no longer her colleague, but a Dire Wraith in her colleague's form, and shoots him in the head. And then she makes her escape while Rogue continues to tackle the Dire Wraiths. So great action sequences here by Windsor-Smith. And as Rogue is touching the Wraiths with her bare skin, she is, by virtue of her mutant power, absorbing something of their psyches. And it is disturbing her mentally. And Professor X, back at the X Mansion, picks up on this. So they learn that Rogue, at least, is alive. Then we switch back to Caldecott County, and Val Cooper trying to make her getaway. She is accosted by Rogue, and what happens is Rogue crashes the car and decides to leave in order to get to the X-Men and get their help. And then our scene switches back to Storm, who has no clothes of her own, and Forge has filled a wardrobe for her, so she's picking out this nice dress because she's beginning to feel attracted to Forge, and he also to her, but they're very awkward about it all, and so she switches to a more conservative attire and comes back down for food. Forge is cooking dinner, and he offers her some champagne. Aurora reveals that she doesn't drink, but she enjoys the champagne, and they begin to talk. And Aurora asks Forge whether he's an Indian. He says he's Cheyenne, but he doesn't really want to talk about the details of his past history. He's only interested in his life at present and who he is now. So then Forge invites Storm to see the storm that is raging outside the building. So that freaks her out because she really feels the fact now that she had no inkling of the storm being outside, and it really drives home to her the loss of her powers. But she and Forge share a tender moment. They kiss, and then it's interrupted by a phone call. And who's on the end of the line except Peter Gyrick? And Aurora, innocently enough, decides that she should ring the X-Mansion, ring the X-Men, let them know that she's alive, catch them up on what's going on. But she happens to tune in to Forge on the other line and picks up on the conversation and misunderstands the conversation between Gyrick and Forge, and thinks that Forge has her captive as a prisoner in his apartment building. So she tries to escape, but because of the nature of the building and the transparent floors, it befuddles her, and she falls and injures herself. And she gets a hold of his control module, hits a button, and by chance finds herself witness to Forge's origin story, or at least the origin of his mutilations in Vietnam, and the Arclight bombing raid, which blew off his leg and injured him almost fatally, but which he survived. and evidently used his mutant power of invention to build himself his mechanical leg and hand. So Storm, having witnessed the Vietnam episode, falls once again to the ground, and she cries out to the goddess that she serves to have mercy. And is it by chance, or is it an incipient return of her mutant power that draws the lightning to where she is in the building, and gives her a point of exit? So again, just amazing art here, just the detail here, all the individual shards of glass, the drawing of the raindrops, the storm, the different angles on the building. It's just stunning artwork by Barry Windsor-Smith, a true master of the medium. And here we go with Forge arriving, shutting off the holographic system, and trying to argue his case with Storm, that he's not in league with Gyrick, that he means her no harm, that he was being genuine with her, and that he's very sorry for everything that has happened and for the confusion that Storm has in relation to his bona fides. So they discuss things, but Storm is not convinced by what he has to say for himself, and so she punches him in the face. And then she calms down, and she gives Forge, from her perspective, some home truths. She says to him, "You live in your high tower, untouched, untouchable, surrounded by illusion, so terrified of the real living world, you cannot bear to violate the sanctity of your space, even with something as small as a flower. Your home is a true reflection of its creator, cold, cruel, sterile, and ultimately a deception. An ideal world wherein the master of lies can feel safe and secure." So real gut punch for Forge from Storm. And Forge is upset. He says, "You're wrong. I'm not like that. I cared for you. I still do. I always will." And she says to him, "Okay, prove me wrong. We are much alike, Forge." This is the final panel here. "I see in you a me that might have been. I chose to walk another road. My feet may never leave the ground, but someday I shall fly again." So real powerful, emotional denouement climax to this story. And of course, there is this, in subsequent issues, a will they, won't they sense of possible romance between Storm and Forge. But it is really based on their part similarity as introverted, stoical individuals, but Storm is walking a different path now than the character she was in the very earliest issues that she appeared in the title. She's getting more in touch with her emotions, her feelings, and now with her mutant powers gone, she is feeling what it is to be human and involved in the world. So a stunning story by both Chris Claremont and Barry Windsor-Smith. This is not Barry Windsor-Smith's first work on the X-Men characters. That was X-Men number 53. But that was his very first comic ever as a professional comics artist. And the style is nothing like here. His style at the time in X-Men 53 was that of a clone, a Kirby clone. So here he is now, a true master draftsman, has his own style. All these years after the famous Conan comics that he drew. And just an excellent, memorable, important issue by Claremont and Windsor-Smith. The first of their 4 collaborations. So in subsequent videos, I will be exploring those other collaborations between the two. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.